This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am speaking with Charles Simpson, who is joining us all the way from the North Downs of Kent in England. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastically well. Lovely to be here.
So we're currently going through this coronavirus COVID-19 thing, and we don't know where it's going really. And you are in a wholly unique position, having your winery in Kent and your winery in Languedoc. What have been your observations regarding the way that the English government and the French government and the English people and the French people are reacting to the current crisis that we're in?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's fair to say is there's no doubt there has been a difference, but I would say that there's now probably, I think it's fair to say there's been a convergence of the two opinions. And that may just be as a result of where each of the countries were in terms of the prevalence of COVID-19. But I think there was a period there, I'd say probably 2 weeks ago, when the advice coming out of France was very much, lockdown mentality, supermarkets, pharmacies, and going to work, and you had to write. You had to have an attestation, a document with you in the car where you were going and why you were doing it. So the French took it very seriously. Meantime, and this is classic Monty Python. I don't know if you watch much Monty Python in your life.
Yes.
If you've seen The Life of the Brian, where obviously Brian and Jesus are up on the cross, having nails hammered into their hands, and they're singing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." So on one breath, you've got the French in complete lockdown mode. In the UK, meantime, we're washing our hands and singing "Happy Birthday" is what the government is telling us to do. I mean, very sort of Monty Python-esque in terms of Britain's solution to this. There's no doubt that as of last Monday, there has been a significant tightening, and now there is a convergence in terms of what we are allowed to do, albeit I just don't think the police force in this country is stopping as many people. Most people are just being able to get out and about, and there's not too much policing going on. Whereas in France, people are being stopped and being pulled over, and their documents are being checked. Having said that, as of this week, it seems to be a relative loosening in France, particularly around businesses. I think the Prime Minister and Macron, the president, has realized how expensive this whole thing is going to be.
Yes.
And they all want people to, where you can and where you can honor social distancing, you should be going back to work. So whereas before it was like only if you have to, only if it's essential, now they're sort of saying if you can, you should, subject to the social distancing law. So that is a subtle shift in France. By contrast, I think with the UK being a few weeks behind, I think what we'll see is actually a stiffening of the restrictions over the next couple of weeks, and probably limitation more on movement. And then hopefully, if we can get that curve to bend, then hopefully we'll follow a similar path to what France is happening. But yeah.
Have you had to alter any of your practices in the vineyards and in the winery with regards to labor and the like?
Yeah, very, very good question. So a couple of things, and not to get on to Brexit, but Brexit started this journey of Europeans, and particularly in viticulture and agriculture, it's Eastern Europeans, not feeling welcome in this country.
Yes.
And therefore, a lot of them started to go home. And that had happened anyway. And the coronavirus only sped that exodus up, with people wanting to get home to their families. So we had a group of 12 Romanians actually doing pruning in our vineyards, and literally at the end of 1 week, they got their first case in their village, and they all come from the same village, and they all up sticks and went home. So fortunately, we were through most of our pruning, so we weren't that exposed. But so that's in terms of labour. There is a lot of Eastern Europeans that have gone home for those two reasons. But what is nice is we have been able to find a group of people in our village who are quite happy to do vineyard work.
Oh, wow.
And of all things, most of them are retirees. So the people who had careers and they're in their late 60s, early 70s, who are still very much fit and able, love to be
Yes.
outside, love this new thing called English viticulture. So we've got that team that carries on. And the nice thing in the vineyard, genuinely, guess what? Our rows are about 2 meters apart. So you even have this line that, you know, you've got one person in one row working on the left and another person in the other row working on the left, and so you're magically 2 meters apart from each other, and you couldn't get any closer to one another. So let's face it, with agriculture, nothing stops. Mother Nature doesn't give a damn about COVID-19. She keeps on growing, and these vineyards need to be cared for and tended to. Even the sort of tractor work, it's a one man, one woman job, right? It's one person in a cab. So, you know, that work carries on. So it's quite strange, really. Whilst everyone's working from home, our vineyard team, you know, is still pretty much coming in every single day. Moving into the winery, we were building up for our tirage of our bottling of our 2019 sparkling base wines. The biggest challenge there was less the wine preparation and labor, and more about getting dry goods and supplies from France, because
I was wondering, yeah.
So let's not forget, as much as the UK wine industry is coming of age, we don't have any of our own glass manufacturers. So particularly, well, we do have glass manufacturers, but not wine glass. So you know, we do clear glass here for things, for spirits, but we don't do any of the green glass or nothing in that shape. So everything comes in from Europe. So there was a mad dash to try and, because the fear was that the frontier would be shut. So we bought our entire annual glass requirement about 2 weeks ago, and got literally 6 lorries in a week from France with that. But so goods are flowing. That's positive. The challenge has been there's a lot of champagne. So the 2 big champagne suppliers of tirage and disgorging are the IOC, Institut Onologique de Champagne, and the Station Onologique de Champagne. And their issue is they've put a moratorium on their people traveling. So they can't bring their lorries over to actually do that work for us. So that's going to prove a little bit challenging. But we have no idea how long that's going to last. I mean, that could be 2 weeks, it could be 4 weeks, it could be longer. But we're now beginning to get our head around what are we going to do if those teams don't come over. So there's fair amounts of maneuvers in the winery that are still going on, but we're just sort of shifting the shape of. And so it's really only the sales and marketing team that has been deeply affected by this, because I'm sure it's the same in Canada. The Horeca, the entree, the hotels, restaurants, pubs, you know, they were just demolished overnight. I mean, packed up, went home. And so for a business like ours, that particularly on the English wines, very much focused at the on-trade, we've had to very quickly pivot towards retail. And of course, we do have those retail relationships, so that's not a problem. But at the same breath, you don't want to damage your brand long term. If your goal was to be seen as, you know, exclusive into the on-trade, it's worrying that we're going to potentially be forced to shift some of that volume into retail. We just need to maintain or choose a different label and slightly different branding, so that when the time comes and it opens up more freely, that we can shift things back again.
Now, we've been speaking about your English operation here. Does the French operation rely upon migrant seasonal workers also, or is that all sourced locally?
Yeah, so I think it's probably true the wine world over, really, isn't it? I mean, in California, it's the Mexicans, and in our part of the world, in southern France, it's the North Africans, so the Algerians and Moroccans that do most of the vineyard work. But there's many of them that are sort of full-time based in France. So there hasn't been that sort of exodus home. There'd be sort of first or second generation who have rights to work in France for historical reasons. So no, we haven't had the same issue on labour from that perspective. No.
Interesting. Well, I really do appreciate you joining us at Good Food Revolution today. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for filling us in on 2 sides of the wine world there, both in Kent and down in Languedoc. And it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you, Jamie.
Excellent. Let's catch up again soon over some of your Pinot Noir and your Chardonnay.
Look forward to it.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.